Dr. Jessie Sanders, owner and chief veterinarian of Aquatic Veterinary Services. Today we will discuss how to not kill your goldfish. Now, goldfish are one of the most popular pets, and they are one of the most commonly first fish pets that people start with. So there's a lot of beginner mistakes that we need to make sure you are aware of in order to make sure your goldfish has a long and happy life. So rule number one, be prepared for new tank syndrome. Now, this is true for any new system. Again, with your brand new shiny filter media, filter pad sponges, they don't come pre-sown with bacteria unless you've taken them from another tank that hopefully has kind of the same species in there. So when you get your brand new goldfish in his brand new tank, you're going to have an ammonia spike. It's just what happens. It's going to go on to a nitrite spike and then nitrate. So that's fully cycling your tank. Now, there are tons of products out there that say they will instantly start your tank. They don't. We've tried them all. Again, there was one that shortened it a tiny bit, but it's going to take about 4 to 6 weeks to get that cycled. And unfortunately, you're just going to have to wait. It's the best thing for it. Now, moving on to point number 2 is to make sure your goldfish has enough room. That also plays into making sure that new tank syndrome won't kick you in the butt, because the more water you have, the lower your ammonia spike is going to be. Now, goldfish, although they start cute and little, have the propensity to grow very, very large. Like, we're talking dinner plate size. And this is, those silly little comet goldfish that everybody used to win at the fair. Hopefully we don't do that anymore. But if you take these tiny little fish and you're packing them into a 5-gallon tank, a 1-gallon bowl, even a 10-gallon tank, you're not giving them enough room. To start with, goldfish need at least 20 gallons per fish. Don't get me started on that 1 inch of fish per gallon rule. It's completely stupid, especially when it comes to goldfish, because they are not the most efficient converters. They eat a lot, they poop a lot, and therefore they make all their water chemistry worse. So no matter what you're starting with, you need at least 20 gallons per fish, and be prepared to go bigger. As I've said it before, the biggest tank you can hold, the better the fish's life will be. That doesn't mean you can pack it full of fish. That means you're going to take the same amount of fish that you were going to put in that 50-gallon tank and instead put it in a 100-gallon tank. I guarantee it'll make your life so much easier. So rule number 3 is make sure that you feed them appropriately. Goldfish should not be eating flakes for their lives. They should eat them when they're really small and can't actually eat a pellet. But they make pellets that are so small these days, most goldfish should be on pellets. And we have separate resources about all the different foods that are available, how to store it, and I'll make sure I'll put the links in the bio below. But it's really important, especially with goldfish, is that you feed them an appropriate amount of protein. And this for goldfish is going to be about 30 to 32% total. That's what they need to maintain. It's what's going to give them good reproduction. Certainly if you have little tiny fish that are trying to grow up big and strong, their protein and fat's going to be different, along with any reproductively active females. But for the most part, you're looking at 30 to 32% protein and 5 to 6% fat. They're not swimming the open ocean. They don't need a lot of fat. Again, juveniles, breeding females, different story. But for the most part, make sure your goldfish is being fed a pellet. Make sure it was bought and opened in the last 6 months. You don't want to be feeding a food that has been around as long as the goldfish. That's essentially the same as you eating cardboard. Now, point number 4, and this is probably the hardest point for a lot of owners, is how can you tell if your goldfish is sick, especially if they're an only child? So it's a little easier with schools of goldfish because you notice, these 4 are all doing this one thing and this one guy in the corner isn't with the group. He's not doing the same thing. Something's probably wrong with him. But if you have one fish, there's a lot of different things you should be looking for. And this might be a physical sign of disease, so problems that you can see on their body. So missing scales, fungus, bacteria, bacterial signs, so ulcers, sores, signs of parasites, bruising. These are all a little bit easier to notice. And then there will be behavioral signs of disease. And in goldfish, this applies to appetite, swimming, body condition, and buoyancy. So goldfish are, especially the fancy ones, are notorious for buoyancy issues. And unfortunately, it's just due to their anatomy, they're very pretty. They are not structurally sound. So if your fish is stuck on the bottom or stuck at the top, they are stressed out, and that's really not a way for a goldfish to exist. So it might just be temporary, after feeding time, especially with there's lots of surface eating, if they float at the top. That happens. Goldfish are physostomous fish, so they have a duct between their esophagus and their swim bladder. If a lot of air goes in their esophagus when they're eating, it can get in their swim bladder and they'll pop to the surface like a cork. It usually dissipates, but in that case, you need to start feeding them sinking food instead. So yeah, those are really the most important points on how to not kill your goldfish. Implying we're going to be leaving all the links for all these articles below, along with a lovely handout on more stuff to look at on how to not kill your goldfish. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any more questions about fish and fish health, please visit our website at cafishvet.com. At Aquatic Veterinary Services, fish are treated like family. For help with your fish, please visit the American Association of Fish Veterinarians at fishvets.org or the World Aquatic Veterinary Medical Association at wavma.org.